All right, get ready to dive deep. Because today, we're talking Dianca Glam, Auntie Tote herself.
The one and only.
You know her, the rapper, the viral sensation, got that Nicki Minaj shout out, still wild, right? But we're going deeper than all that. We got this interview, and let me tell you, Dianca holds nothing back. We're seeing how she built that confidence, that resilience. It's fascinating.
Well, and it's interesting you say built because even how she uses tote, it's more than just like a fashion thing for her.
Oh, absolutely.
It's that attitude, that strength she's earned, through some extraordinary stuff.
Totally. And she talks about growing up being this, like, urban girl, she calls it, from the projects, and how even then she was drawn to fashion, to performing. Talks about seeing these women in the club scene who just owned it, you
That's
know.
powerful presence.
Yes. And you can tell that had a huge impact on how she saw beauty, how she saw strength, even before her transition.
Totally. She even talks about how those women were built like a brick house, the total package. And it wasn't just looks. Even then, it was about owning your space, demanding respect.
And that journey to owning her space, it wasn't easy, especially within the LGBTQ plus community itself. I mean, she's totally upfront about being blackballed from a pageant system. Can you believe that?
It's a prime example, unfortunately, of the gatekeeping that happens, especially for trans women. Imagine you're trying to be part of a space that's supposed to be about celebrating identity, and you get shut out for literally just being who you are. Dianca's experience, it highlights those deeper issues within the community. We still have a ways to go on real inclusion.
It's disheartening, but instead of letting that stop her, Dianca turns to music. She'd been rapping since, what, '09, but she says prison really ignited her creative drive.
Have you noticed that about some people? The tougher things get, the more creative they become. Totally. It's remarkable. And she doesn't shy away from those experiences, not at all. She uses them, channels them into her art. She talks about prison being this catalyst,
Yeah.
For self-reflection and expressing herself. It wasn't just survival. It was like turning all that adversity into fuel.
And speaking of turning points, that Nicki Minaj moment, can you imagine getting that kind of recognition from someone like Nicki Minaj?
It's huge, right? It speaks to how important mentorship and visibility are, especially in the music industry. When you have someone like Nicki at the top of her game and she acknowledges an artist from a marginalized community, it breaks down walls, opens doors. It's like telling every aspiring artist out there, look, this is possible.
And Dianca, she's got that anything's possible energy, the hustle, the drive, it's all there. But you can also tell how deeply prison affected her. She doesn't sugarcoat it either. The threats, how she had to navigate this really tough environment, always on alert. What do you think about how open she was about all that?
It's raw. It's powerful. And her insights, they're not just about surviving prison. She talks about understanding the power dynamics in there, how to read people, how to adapt to a system that's often working against you.
It's like street smarts, but for a whole different world.
Exactly. And whether you're in prison or the entertainment industry, that awareness is key.
And through it all, she never loses sight of who she is. Dianca has these incredibly insightful takes on double standards around gender, sexuality, relationships. She talks about the trade and really challenges the assumptions people make about, trans women and their relationships.
And that's where her voice becomes so essential. She really pushes back against this idea of tricking, which just reduces trans women down to a stereotype. It's about respecting everyone's individual choices and journeys. It's about advocating for those individual stories.
Absolutely. And what a story she has. Dianca is Dianca, whether she's on stage, in a video, or calling out hypocrisy. She's a force, and we're just getting started. Let's dive even deeper into those prison experiences next, the challenges, the insights, the resilience that just shines through it all.
Yeah, it's like you're really getting a look into a side of her life that most people, they just don't see. Having to exist in a system that's a lot of times directly opposed to who you are at your core. She talks about having to constantly, suppress parts of herself, but not just any parts, the very essence of Dianca.
It's really heavy stuff. But then she mentions this thing about, even in that environment, how important it still was to maintain her appearance, her style.
Yeah.
She's toting even in prison.
Wow. Yeah. You said it's a powerful statement. She is not letting the system take her identity, not one bit. Holding on to that sense of style, it's claiming her space. It's her saying, I am a woman in a place that's literally trying to take that way.
That's that resilience, that refusal to be broken that makes her so compelling. And it goes beyond just, how she looks. She talks about finding that inner strength, too, to connect with people in such an isolating environment, forming bonds with other inmates, sharing stories, even finding the humor in it all.
It's that human need for connection. And Dianca's no stranger to navigating different worlds. Growing up where she did, it gave her this incredible ability to find common ground with people, no matter who they are. She talks about it, that empathy. It helps her see past all the surface stuff, even in a place like that.
It's amazing how she brings these like unseen parts of prison life to light, even like the dynamics with the guards, those relationships, or sometimes the lack of relationships. It's a whole other side of things we don't usually hear about.
Absolutely. And she keeps it real. She
Yeah.
talks about the guards who abuse their power, but then also the ones who somehow manage to hold on to their humanity in that system. It makes you think. And the way she observes all of it, all the complexities, even in that kind of controlled environment, it shows you what a sharp observer she is of people.
It reminds me of how she breaks down the trade in prison, this whole system of exchange, like how relationships work within that power structure. But what's fascinating is how she connects that to the outside world, like the hypocrisy of how society views relationships, especially when it comes to trans women.
Such a good point. By drawing those parallels, she forces us to look at our own biases. It's uncomfortable, but it's real. Those same judgments, those double standards, they exist everywhere.
Yeah. And she doesn't let us look away from the hard stuff either. She talks about the violence, the threats, constantly having to be on guard, protecting herself. It's a reminder that for trans women, especially trans women of color, that danger is very real, inside and outside those walls.
Absolutely. And yet, through it all, the hardship, the fear, she finds a way to hold on to herself. She even talks about humor being a way to cope, a way to take back some of that power. She could let it harden her, but she didn't. She puts that energy into her art, into spreading this message of resilience and self-love.
It makes you wonder, how do you go through all that and come out the other side with that kind of purpose?
It's a testament to how strong she is, inside and out, that belief in herself.
Yeah.
She talks about using her time to write, to practice her comedy, to nurture that creative side. Basically, she took the worst possible situation and turned it into a time for growth, reinvention even.
And then, boom, she's out and she dives headfirst into the music industry, which, let's be honest, it's a tough world for anyone, especially as an independent artist.
Yeah.
But she's not all talk. She goes out there and makes it happen.
She's got that hustle. Dianca's got the vision and the work ethic to back it up. She talks about putting in the work, the networking, building everything from the ground up, and doing all that, as a trans woman of color, navigating all those extra obstacles.
Yeah, the barriers don't just disappear.
Right. But she perseveres. And her dreams. Let me tell you, this woman thinks big. Being a successful rapper isn't enough. She's got her sights set on media mogul status, building an empire. It's like she's constantly proving people wrong, pushing past expectations.
And she's not just doing it for herself either. She's trying to use her platform to lift other people up, especially in the LGBTQ plus community. And she's not just doing it for herself either. She's trying to use her platform to lift other people up, especially in the LGBTQ plus community.
Right, and that's what makes her so impactful. It's not just about one person's experience. She's representing this whole spectrum of what it means to be part of that community, the struggles, the victories, the messy parts too.
Yeah.
And she does it all with this, amazing blend of humor and being real vulnerable even.
Yeah. Like she can talk about being shut out of a pageant one minute and then be cracking a joke about prison life the next. That ability to find the humor in dark places, not letting it get you down, it's inspiring. You can't help but connect with that.
Totally. And it reminds you that being resilient, it's not about pretending the hard stuff wasn't there. It's about finding a way through, finding those bits of light, even when things are tough. And Dianca, she embodies that.
She does. She's like that friend who will tell you the truth straight up, but always with a little humor. Little heart. Not afraid to call out the BS, but she does it with a wink.
Exactly. And that's why people listen. It's not preachy, it's just real. She's putting her story out there, her observations, and we get to learn from it.
It all circles back to that word, tote. That quiet confidence, owning your space, not needing to demand attention, you just have it.
It's about knowing your power and using it to lift yourself up and everyone around you.
Dianca's story it's a masterclass in resilience. In using your voice, in not accepting the way things are, she shows people they can be themselves, find their own way.
Absolutely.
Uh,
She's living proof you can overcome anything. Break down barriers, define success on your own terms, all while rocking a fierce look and never losing that heart.
So for everyone listening, think about this. What's one thing you'll tote with you from Dianca's story?
What a question. Dianca reminds us to embrace every part of ourselves, find our voices, and shine bright.
Auntie Tote for a new generation. That's Dianca Glam. Can't wait to see what she does next.